Hello, my channel mammals. I'm in the car right now. Normally, I wouldn't do a video in the car, but I've been saving this mending project to show you a little bit about how to do the kind of mending that I do. And it just kept on waiting and waiting and waiting, and it never happened. And then I thought, oh, I'm just going to bring it with me on my errands today. And then I thought, oh, the sun just peeked out from the clouds, and it's so beautiful. I thought I can show it to you whilst I'm working on it right here. And also, it's a good idea to think about the idea of just grab whatever you can do. If you're running off on errands and you have to wait for somebody or something, or you're waiting in a line, or whatever it might be, just feel free to pick up some of your mending, and you can get so much more done. And if your husband drives, or your wife drives, or your children drive, or your parents drive, always try to get them to drive because then you can do what you need to do. The sleeve of my my left arm, which is what I use the most, and here is the mending project. It's a little example of a slightly different kind of approach here. Let me just, I'm sorry, I'm gonna try to get this straightened out. There we go. You can see it better here. It's one small hole. Well, not that small. It's the size of maybe a $50. But I cut out a piece of fabric that's bigger than the hole. You see, it goes all the way down farther on the sleeve. And the reason for that is because I could sense that the fabric right where my elbow bends was getting a little thin. And not too dangerously so, but I thought, well, whilst I'm mending this little hole that occurred, I might as well mend the whole section there. I mean, make the fabric longer so that it reinforces that part of the sleeve, kind of like what you do on a jacket or a cardigan or something, where you'd put a patch on the outside. Well, this is just to reinforce the elbows. Well, this is the same thing, but it's on the inside, so it's not as noticeable when I'm wearing it. It looks very noticeable here because I'm really highlighting it with the light behind it. But when it's not with the light behind it, you really can't see it. You'll see the tiny bit of stitching, but you won't see much of what's going on. Now, I'll give you a little story about, it's not much of a story, but about this blouse. If you notice that the sleeves are gathered at the top, just at the top part of the sleeve, and that is because I usually have to alter what I get anywhere, you know, especially, you know, if I don't make it myself. And so what I do, and this is something everybody might want to realize, if you are narrower across your body than when the blouse is, I mean, you need to give some room for, you know, you don't want it to be tight on you if it's a blouse, but you want to take it in on the sides. And so in doing so, what that does is it cuts out quite a lot of fabric on the sides, which means that the hole for the sleeve is smaller than it originally was, because before the sleeve connected out farther on the blouse when the rest of the blouse was there. And so anyway, you take the sleeves off, zip up the sides, and make them to whatever size you need it to be. And then the way I did this, now remember, this was several years ago. I'm not even sure what it looks like. Oh yeah, it looks pretty good. It's I just stitch it and trim it, and then I zigzag it. You see the zigzag stitch, which keeps it from fraying inside. Or you could do a French seam. That's the other way I do it. But when you have a zigzag, you don't need to do a French seam so often, unless it is a very sheer blouse and you want it to show as an attitude about it. But so then when I took that in, it took off a bunch of fabric on the sides, right? So that meant that the hole of the sleeve was moved in. So it was a smaller hole. So the only way I could keep the fullness of the sleeve that I wanted was to gather the top part of the sleeve. It wasn't gathered before. there was so much extra that I was able to gather it and make a little, and then it tapers down. This is the one with the patch. The sleeve is a nice tapered sleeve, and then it goes up to like a leg of mutton sleeve almost. It's called a leg of mutton. So see, it's narrower at the bottom. There's no gathering or anything. Then it just gets wider as it goes up, and then the top part is gathered. So it's quite handsome when it's on. So that just tells you a little bit about that. And then this little inset, I might have already mentioned, it was already in there. Okay, so now back to mending. And okay, so you see the whole blouse is in quite good shape. It's just that right where my elbow is where it wears thin. So now I'm going to see if I can just at least show you. I started stitching, you know, right around here where my finger's wiggling under there and around, and I attached it onto the tab of the sleeve, so it's very well reinforced here with the thickness of the tab. And here's where the thread ended so far. And then I'll just go all the way around this little hole, just little tiny stitches. You know, you're going to see them. It's part of what mending is, but it doesn't look bad. When it's all done and pressed, you'll actually think it's quite nice. And it's quite a fun little story. And then I'll do on the inside, I'm just going to tell you all about this now, and then when you see it, you'll understand it. So you see how there's that piece of fabric, and it's not the same kind of fabric as the blouse. As you can see, it's very coarse weave compared to the finer weave of the blouse. But I don't mind, because it's only this little hole that's going to show that through, and the rest of it is just, it's good. It's because I used this fabric because it was the closest in tone. I only had white linen or colors or something. I didn't have quite what I wanted. And sometimes I wear this blouse hanging out, so I didn't want it to I didn't want to cut anything off at the bottom of the blouse. I just wanted to keep those little vents on the side. So I decided to use a different fabric. So now I'm going to proceed with mending this. You see, after I do the little hole in the front, I will, where are my fingers here? Then I'll fold this under all the way around and repin it. And it'll be like a little hem. It'll be rolled under here, and then I'll stitch it all along by hand, and then it'll be done. And I'll have my blouse back again. Hi, I'm back on Yankee now, and I have this little tool. I think it's still called an egg, even though it's an umbrella shape. But I think I've shown these things before to people. But anyway, I had a couple of them here. Let's see if I can find. Here's one. Another shape. This might go into the toe of a sock or a slipper. But this one is good. I use this one a lot, actually. It's just a nice open area. And this gives you a nice platform from which to work, because otherwise you could stitch it to the other side of the sleeve by accident, or you could not have a nice smooth relationship from stitch to stitch. It could all kind of bunch up, or I don't know how people do it without using an egg or whatever. It doesn't have to. It's perfect the way it is using an egg. This one is one that Richard made for me out of leftover pallets, you know, that people ship on or used to ship on. I don't know if they still do, but they're made out of really good hardwoods, usually, because they have to be very strong for heavy weights. So they're nice and hard, so you don't ever dig into them, you know, with a pin or a needle. So here it is. Here's the project. Now this is why I wanted to show this to you. You see, you can't have pins everywhere. There's a pin here, and there's a pin here, and there's a pin over here, and here, and so forth. But some places you can't really fit a pin, but see how the fabric in this little area right here isn't tucked back in? So it's very easy, especially when you have a little shape like this. You see this little piece of frayed fabric sticking out here? That's because you can't really fit a pin everywhere. So I just take my needle and kind of pull it back in. You see, I just took my needle and you just slide it along and tuck it in there. And then it's a fold over, really. It's as if it's folded in there. I'm not sure if you can see what I'm doing. I'm ready to stitch now. Yeah, I'm taking my first stitch here in this little area. I'm doing it really slowly to show you. Continuing to tuck it in, making sure. It's really hard to do this. I'm doing it between my knees with the phone between me and the project. So it's, oh. Okay, so we're coming around the corner a little bit here. I think I'll take this pin out because we don't really need it anymore now that it's kind of stretched. I'm just tucking it in over here just to get it out of the way. There. Now you can see what I'm doing here. Okay, so this is really great because it's all tucked in. And continue on stitching here. Okay, so now that center part is all mended. And now I'm going to put my needle under and come out over here and flip the blouse around and start the back side work. Okay? Okay, now I've turned the blouse inside out all the way down the sleeve, and I pinned the back square, the patch, on with what pins I had here with me, just so that it was secure around the corner there, and brought the needle through from the other side. And now I'm going to start mending this down. So let's see if you can see what I'm doing here. I think you can get a general idea. I won't hold you to this for so long because I think you already know that you just make a little hem by pinning it back. You don't have to press or do anything, just take it step by step, little by little, and it's just a tiny little hem. I think it would drive you crazy to try to do it with an ironing and all of that. Certain things you do need an iron for, but these are just little simple patchwork that needs to be done to put it back into service again. So now I take out the pins and put them somewhere else as you come to where they are. And then just keep picking up a little bit from the blouse and a little bit from the patch. Remembering that the blouse, you don't want it to be too much of a mark showing, so keep it tiny. And yeah, you're getting a pretty good view here. Although for me, it is very awkward. It's okay. And slow. But it's worth it to show you. Because I think people have, in general, have given up on mending. I think one thing is because clothes have gotten to be quite cheap. And also, I think that's probably the real reason, is that it's easier to just go and get another one. But I like the mending because some things I really like, and actually they're the things that need mending the most because they're what I wear the most. So just to keep them, ready and useful to me, I keep them mended. I'm going to get a little bit more thread here, and we'll finish this job. I'm using double thread. I don't usually, but I don't know. I just started out that way. It's a light, delicate thread. It would never break, I'm sure, but I don't know. It just felt a little more substantial in the actual workings of it. Not to have to watch after the tail getting lost or used up without being aware. I don't know. And it didn't really matter. The fabric is kind of a coarse fabric, and it's fine. So there we go. Ready to keep going. I'll put this back in here again, my little egg. It's called a darning egg, okay? So if you ever want to ask about it, someone will know what you're talking about. There. Now I'm ready to carry on here from where we tucked it in. So I start back a little bit farther. So that it has a chance to kind of rework some of the areas that might be left a little precarious after that little knot gets tucked in. And then around we go again. As I said, I do this a couple, again, wherever I've left off, I kind of go over it with a new thread. Okay, so this gives you an idea how you can speed along here. You can even do a few stitches at a time before pulling it. And another thing I always do is after those few stitches, I usually do an extra stitch that kind of stops it. See, like you can't pull it, that it would become tight. That it would, pull too tight. It locks it in. Okay, so I keep forgetting to look and see what you're seeing here. There's 1, 2, and a third one. And then a lock stitch right here. It could go a little farther than 3, but so you see I made a lock stitch by coming through the loop this time. Take out these. Off. And then put them into a little further along, into a place where they can hold it down again. So I move my darning egg over so it's easy to pin into it without pinning through the blouse, the other side of the sleeve. So I'm going to hold this tight just to do this preparation work so that those pins get put to use again. Folding it over with my finger. See, it's just a teeny little fold, maybe 1/8 of an inch. There, that's good for now. I'll meet up with you after I finish this, and I'll press it, and maybe I'll even put it on so you can see a little bit about what I was talking about with the sleeves and the altering and all those little details. Hi, my channel mammals. Look, wait a second, I have to finish buttoning up. I just wanted to show you this blouse. Wait a minute, maybe I need to have it a little more tilted down here. Yeah, I just wanted to show you this blouse when it's all been mended and put back together again. Can you see? I'm just wearing it with what skirt I had on, but I thought I'd show it to you out because it, in a way, it shows better how to see the way of altering it. Because you see, when it's altered, you take quite a lot out of the two sides to make it fit, and then that makes the armhole smaller. So you take the sleeve and gather up the top of the sleeve so that it can fit in the small sleeve hole, rather than taking fabric off the sleeve if you want it to be a little bit fuller for movement. And what's interesting is I think a lot of people don't realize that when the armhole goes up very close to your own armpit, you have more freedom of movement. When it's out here, you know, it's kind of connected to the side of the blouse, and it doesn't give you as much movement. So it's really good to alter it because it actually makes it have more space in a way. And now let's see, which side? I don't even remember which side. Oh, you know what's funny? Wait, where did it go? Oh, you know what's weird? It's my right arm that wore out. I think that's odd, because maybe the person before me who owned this blouse had already started to wear it there, and they were right-handed. Anyway, there goes the theory of left and right hand, and one getting more use, you know, and so forth. But no, the left hand, it was never needed to be altered, and the right hand did. Now you see, you can hardly see it. Let me see, it might make a difference if we're turned away from so much strong light. Yeah, you see, there's the little patch, and then you can see the stitching on the surface of the bigger patch, which goes all the way up to here. Let's see if I can try to show it to you. See it underneath there? But it's very hard to see. And, you know, especially if you wear a jacket or a cardigan or just, I don't know, it's usually not, it's not really a problem. Okay, so here it is with a jumper, you know, just a long-waisted jumper. And normally in this weather, I won't stay long like this. I'll have to put a vest or a cardigan underneath the jumper, a pullover or something, or a jacket. But it's just so you can see the blouse and see why it's. And then this is the one that has that little trim, you know, going down the. Oh, you can't see it very well. Let's try that. See, this is the one that has that little inset, and so I think it's really worth, you know, mending. Anyway, I've also wanted to say a lot of the things that we find we're needing mending are things that we love the most, right? Because we wear them the most. So it makes it worth it. And it also gives it another little story of another human touch. And not that anyone can see it, but you know that you took care of it. So I'll show you more examples as we go along in our mending program. The mending video takes, you know, a couple of years to do because I'm always doing different things, and None of them are long enough for a full video, so I just thought, well, it'll be fun to make little gatherings and put them all together so you'll enjoy it as one piece.